Alright folks, today on this quick episode of DIYNate, I have got a classic broken cabinet, and of course it never breaks in the right spot. I only have a little bit of a border here, so I can't really use wood glue too well to get it to adhere the way I'd like it to. So I'm going to use a little technique I've used in the past, which is basically taking the broken wood, the hinges off, and then we're going to come in and put some screws deep into the wood here. You can see there's only a very little bit to anchor to. I have used this in the past with these similar cabinets, and it's worked out well for me in the last cabinet that I did it with. Now, the reason these cabinets break, I have a feeling my kids, they'll get on these things and they'll push down and they won't realize that the hinges and the cabinets are not all that solid. You know, I think they sometimes play Tarzan on them and swing on the cabinets while the hinges are holding. So kind of funny, but at the same time frustrating when you have a cabinet that breaks just the way this does. Take a close look here. We've got split wood on both sides, and we're going to unfasten the old part of the cabinet. We're going to fasten them back together. We probably will apply a little bit of wood glue there just to get a little bit of adherence, and then we're going to drill in and we're going to seal it with some really long screws without splitting the wood. That's the big trick there. So let's give it a shot and see what we get today.
You're watching DIYNate. If you enjoy this video, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to tell me about your project in the comments.
All right, so our first step here is going to be take the old hinges off and line up the wood. So you can see this has been sitting here for a couple weeks, project waiting to happen. So in this case, I'm going to leave the hinges on, and we're just going to take the door off, and then we'll re-secure those. Since the hinges are well in place and they've got a good hold, I'm going to need to drill into this side, and I want to have the access to be able to get to these. So I am going to take it off at the hinges here. So we'll go ahead and pop that out. First one, just using my driver Ryobi here. Love this tool. It's a great little product. I'm going to put my screws in here so I don't forget about them. They'll be available when I need them later. So, all right, there we go. So now we got that part out, and let's just take a look here and see. Good to remember which side is which. So this is the top side of the cabinet. I know my top side is going to go over on this side, so I'm going to put them back together. See, hopefully it joins nicely as it did in the past. Pretty well, sticks back together. So I should be able to clamp those together a little bit and then drill to make that cabinet reattach. So we're gonna give it a shot, see how it goes. So as I mentioned before, in a lot of cases, if I had the option, I might try to use wood glue for this, but wood glue is a temporary solve because the kids play with this pretty rough. And I've got some old school Gorilla Glue that's been sitting in my garage for months. I'm gonna smear a little of this on here, but I'm not using that as the permanent fix. So you'll see me do that just for a second here, but I don't know that glue is necessary, but for some of you, this might be the answer to your problem. You can see it's got a groove here, and I'm gonna line that slot with the cabinet and try and make sure everything lines up the right way before I really get deep into putting the glue on and drilling the holes. You know, it fits pretty well, which is great. It seals back together like that. And so really what I'm going to do is once I get that glue applied, I'm going to drill through here and run some long deck screws. Right now I don't have something longer or better that I think will work, but the trick is the wood here is very thin, and so I'm kind of going to be tapping into both pieces and hitting that meat. Since it's essentially 3 pieces of very thin wood, you want to be real careful you don't split your wood. And so we're just going to take our wood glue here. This Gorilla stuff has kind of seen better days, and so I'm having to use a knife to get it out. The fact that it even comes out is kind of surprising. I've had it so long. So I'm just going to run it down the ridge here, fill in the gaps. Maybe that'll give me a little extra adherence when I put the screws in. You know, Gorilla Glue tends to be pretty good. It's just unfortunately that stuff tends to dry up for me, and I usually don't get to use nearly all that I bought of it, so just using a butter knife to spread it. In my case, I'm just putting it on like this, getting a little bit in there, hoping this, you know, gives me a little bit of extra cure. And my kids are rough on this stuff too, so I'm just going to smear this in here a little bit more, and then we'll try to adhere it and just snapping the pieces back together as much as I can. They actually adhere a little better, and we're going to use those screws out pretty well. That wood glue adheres really nicely though, so it gives me a good firm hold. But I'm going to put some clamps on here, really hold it in place while I start to drill my holes. This will at least hold it in place when I start drilling my holes. So now we've got the 2 pieces held there, and our cabinet is holding nicely. I'm just going to use this as a prop and rest it up against the side, and then I'm going to shoot straight in. The big thing to remember here is you want to make sure you get the right size drill bit as you go into these holes to make sure you don't split the wood. I'm gonna use some deck screws and then go right in through here. These are probably a little bigger than I need, but as you can see, that screw will hit into the good meat pretty well. So you wanna make sure you got a bit that's big enough to open up that hole so it doesn't split the wood, but you also wanna leave enough so that it's not loose in there. So that's what we're gonna be doing in just a second. Ready to go with our drill bit, swapping out my bit here. And the trickiest part is gonna be hitting this just right. And since it's on an inside corner, it doesn't matter if I miss too much. The biggest problem with these is you don't have much play at all working with them. So if you miss big, and it can be a big pain. So I'm gonna try and go right in, and I'm gonna take it smooth while I go here. Now again, I'm not using a vise for video purposes, but we're hoping we'll go straight through without splitting our wood. And that looks like it's gonna do pretty well there. So as you can see, I've got my screw in the hole there, and that's gonna hold nicely. And I didn't split the wood, didn't come out of there or anything either, so I'm in good shape with that first screw holding up. So we'll come back for the other side, and this project gets a lot easier after you get one of them in, but I will say using a big screw with a very limited amount to go through makes it tough, and not using something to stabilize you could make you miss, so be careful when you're putting your screws in here. Okay, so we got that one in there. And again, I'm going to come with a deck screws, what I had laying around. And that seems like that's going to hold. So right there, I've got my driver that sunk those. And now my cabinet is good as new, more or less. Those screws looking pretty good, and the cabinet will hold up nicely. I'm holding it right after gluing it and putting those screws in. So we're ready to fasten those back to the cabinet and give it a shot. So that fix is pretty straightforward. A little bit of wood glue, and really you didn't need that. We popped in the screws. The big part of this project is keeping you from having to go buy another cabinet door. And so it looks like it's gonna hold pretty nicely. It's not going anywhere. The screws are well intact. Good to go on that. We're gonna tighten it in. Got our driver ready to roll. I usually start with one on each top and bottom to get it secured. So just put one right up here in the top. Make sure we go right back in the spot we had it before. Good to go there. Just like that. It's already holding on by itself, which is great. Shows that it's got some strength to it. And again, these are tough cabinets to replace, and nobody wants to have to deal with finding the right exact match for a cabinet. So I'd much rather put a little hack fix together and end up with another several years of life before I have to think about doing any kind of cabinet replacement. And that's what we're doing right here. So almost done with this project. And just like that, we're back in business. So now closes nicely, as good as these cabinets. You know, they've got some wear on them, some age, but you know, now it's not a big gaping hole for my girls in their bathroom. And as you can see, it doesn't look too bad really from the outside. You don't have any negative spots there. A little bit of, if you really look closely, you can see those ends, but nobody's looking that close, especially where this is located in the bathroom. Nobody's viewing it from that side. So all in all, I consider this a successful project. All right, folks, that's a wrap. This is DIYNate. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you liked this video, you enjoyed it, it helped you solve your problem, and your project turned out fine as well. If I could save you the hassle of having to go out and find exact replica cabinets that look or match 20 years in the past, and it keeps you from having to go out and spend any money, you know, great, that would be awesome. Let me know in the comments. We'd love for you to like, comment, and subscribe. Have a great day.